So in this video, I'm going to show you a different technique to retouch the skin in Photoshop. So far, we have seen how to do it with camera raw and with the frequency separation technique. And they're both really good. It depends on what kind of result you want to achieve. Obviously, the frequency separation is aimed towards the people who like really smooth skin and light on the skin. Although if you use a small amount of blur, you can do frequency separation and still have some really nice texture without getting a skin that looks too smooth. So you can do that as well with the frequency separation technique. But anyway, we use it usually to get a smooth skin. Now there's a third method. That would be in Photoshop using the patch tool. And that's really easy. And maybe you will prefer this one. So at the end of the day, it's up to you to choose the one you prefer, but I want to show you pretty much everything I can, providing it's a good workflow, and I think this is a good workflow too, it's just different. So this is the result we have just after leaving camera raw. Okay, so if you remember well, we converted to black and white, and of course we take the scenario where we converted to black and white in camera raw, but we didn't do the skin retouching obviously in camera raw, so we have something to do here in Photoshop. And I'm going to zoom in. So for this particular photo, it's going to work if the skin is really smooth, and because I want to achieve a dramatic look, I think it can also work if the skin is a bit harsh. And again, it goes well with the dramatic look I want to achieve. So I think both scenario could work for this particular picture. So let's say we're not going to work on the light, so we're not going to do a frequency separation technique in this video, but still I want to remove the biggest distractions on the skin. I think these would be better off the picture, and same here on the left part of the face, a bit here, a bit here. So we've got different small areas where I kind of want the texture to be to look uniform. Okay, so I don't have things that distract the viewer. Okay, so it's really easy. It's really easy. Just bear with me. It's going to take only a few minutes. I have just one layer. I'm going to create a new one. This one's going to be empty for the moment. And I'm going to zoom in and take in the tool box the spot healing brush tool. It's the first one in the toolbox. I mean in the healing brush toolbox, because we've got 5 actually, and the one that interests us is spot healing brush tool. And I want to click up there in the sample all layers, because otherwise, if it's not checked, it's not going to do anything. And why? Well, because we're working on an empty layer, so this tool's got nothing to work with, it's got nothing to analyze, nothing to eat, and we have to feed him. So that would be sample all layers, so everything that is basically on the screen right now is going to be part of the analysis, and it's going to replace the texture with something that the tool thinks is better. So if I say I want you to eat that, it's going to analyze what's around it and replace with a texture which looks better. And that's completely artificial intelligence, like there is some kind of voodoo magic going on there, but basically what it does, it analyzes what's surrounding the texture, and if the tool is noticing something that repeats, it's going to think it's a texture and put that texture inside the area I painted. And same for here, same for here, and as you can see, it does a pretty good job to replace with something that looks like the skin we have around. So it does a pretty good job to know what's best for this part. Look, if we go all the way down, and it's a lot darker, the texture is different, and because the analysis is not going to be up there but just around, again, it's going to replace the texture with something that looks like what I painted, minus that whatever it was that looked different. So it is pretty clever and intelligent, and that way, because I clicked sample all layers, now all the different patches I've done are now put in a different layer, meaning I can do before and after, And if I want to blend the original result, I can still do it. If I want to go back, I can still do it. So it's completely non-destructive. So it's a very elegant way to do some patches and cloning. So remove whatever you want. For example, here we have that hair that goes in the middle of the face, and it would do, I think, pretty good job if I gave him that hair to eat. Yeah, I want you to eat that. Do your magic, boom. And it knows that the texture that's around the hair is the one that it needs to take. So we've got something that doesn't look like it's been retouched. Obviously, we want to avoid people to notice this photo as retouched. So you may notice we've got 3 different buttons up there. And the content aware will do a pretty good job most of the time because it's the most advanced analysis we have. Now, if you try to paint in an area where there's something really dark or really bright next to it, maybe the tool will try to blend these two together, which is not something you want. And you could trick the tool by making a selection, like for example, using the lasso tool, and you take that area and then you do the spot healing brush inside the selection, so you prevent the tool to go outside the selection, and so it doesn't try to blend stuff that is not meant to be blended. Right, so this way we can remove the biggest imperfection of the skin without actually getting something that is too smooth. All right. So I'm not going to take like 2 hours to do it. It's up to you to decide up to what point you wanna go for the retouching process. But I think on this photo, removing the biggest imperfections and still keeping that kind of dramatic light on the face, it is working for me. The smooth version is working for me, but this one is also working for me. I mean, as a personal taste, I would keep the most dramatic one, even if it looks a bit harsh on the skin for the model. It is true, it is something natural, right? So it's not really fashion magazine style of portrait, but I like also when it's a bit dramatic and yeah, it doesn't look too fake. For some other photo, yeah, maybe you want something really smooth. So again, this is okay, before and after. We removed the biggest imperfections on the skin, but we didn't touch the light. Now there was another way again to do it, and that would be working directly on the layer, because we're going to use a different spot healing brush. We're going to use patch tool, and patch tool is not able to work on a different layer. We can't put the result on top of the base layer. We have to work on the layer itself, okay? And so the shortcut is still J, and what you have to do, it's semi-automatic. It's not completely automatic, it's a bit manual. So you select the area you want to retouch, and basically by default the patch tool is a lasso tool for the selection. And then you say, I want this to be replaced by this texture, and it's going to blend the two together. So if you want to control the texture you are injecting in what you have selected, you can use that. The spot healing brush with content aware is going to choose that for you, so it's completely automatic and it does a pretty good job most of the time. But if you want to really get control, have a control on what you're doing and on the texture you're injecting in your patches, then you can use the patch tool. If you have a Wacom tablet like I have right now, it's not really any slower, maybe a few seconds in the end, but otherwise, instead of just painting, it's a matter of selecting and boom, drag and drop to where you want the tool to go. Now for this hair specifically, yeah, the content aware will do a better job. Let's be honest, for these kind of patches, yeah, the content aware is going to be better, but for skin retouching, the patch tool does a pretty good job. Now you're not only limited to the selection you have on the patch tool, which is a lasso tool. Let's say you want to do a more precise selection. You could even use the pen tool and say, I want this area. So I'm using the pen tool right now. I transform that into a selection by right click and then make selection. And once a selection is active with the running ants, I can switch to the patch tool and now use that selection and say where I want that texture to be used, and then Control D. So basically any active selection could be a starting point for the patch tool. You don't have to use the built-in lasso tool, even if it's the most convenient most of the time. For some more precise selections, you can use whatever you want and then switch to the patch tool. So that could be a way to retouch the skin as well. Still no frequency separation, just working on the surface, just working on the texture. There is no light retouching in these techniques, but still I wanted to show to you these two in case you want to do the skin retouching in Photoshop, but without a frequency separation technique.